Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to another Love Island review. Yes, and our final review of the week, guys. It's been a really quick week, but I'm not going to hold you. I'm starting this review off a bit confused because I don't actually understand that ending. I don't understand Toni's crash out. I thought she liked Emily. There's a lot for us to discuss, okay? A lot for us to dissect because I'm still a bit confused, and I'm sure you are as well, because what was that ending? Okay, what was that ending? But as I usually always say, number one, if you haven't yet subscribed, be sure to subscribe and definitely join the family. We love having you here, and we love a cheeky chin wag on this channel, period. Also be sure to follow me on my Instagram and also my Twitter at SarahDestinyX. And number three, please get cozy and comfy with a lovely drink, some snacks, and let's get into the final review of the week. So let's start off with the aftermath of the game with Harry being exposed. Of course, you knew that Helena, Megan, Emily, and who? Helena and Elima. Wait, Helena, Megan, Elima, and Emily were talking, and you know, she was saying that, you know, she's done, like he's completely embarrassed me, blah 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 blah. And Harry was now speaking to the guys at the same time and was like, oh yeah, bad boys for life at 30 years old. At 30 years old, you're saying bad boys for life. And the thing is, guys, I think even throughout this episode, and even just as the episodes have been going on throughout the week as well, I've been saying this in all of my reviews, Harry is there for a good time and a tan. Okay? He's actually so unserious. And I said this as well. I feel like Helena was trying to hold on, because at least if she tries to hold on to him, let's say there was going to be a recoupling, she knows that he will always have her back and vice versa. But I'm sorry, there's only so much one can take. There's actually only so much one can take. Let's move on to Meg and Dejon having a conversation about the comments that he made about Yasmin and the threesome and the kissing, and I think she's attractive and blah, 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 blah. You guys already know how I feel about the whole Dejon and Meg situation. I feel like it seems to be the same storyline that we're getting from them every episode. Okay, there's an argument, there's a shouting, rekindling, argument, shouting, rekindling, argument, that seems to be the, you know what I mean. But Meg was obviously saying as well, like, you know, I'm not Helena, I'm Meg. Yeah, we know you're Meg. Okay, she said, I'm not Helena, I'm Meg. Don't follow, if you follow in Harry's footsteps, it is over. All this different stuff. I would also say, which I noted down, is that I actually feel like Dejon is quite manipulative. Is Dejon manipulative, or is Meg easily manipulated? Because she could be crashing out and Dejon would just say, but I call you beautiful though. And she'll be like, yeah, but D. And she's like, and he'll be like, but it's you that I call, like, I tell you all the time. I may say stuff to all these other girls, but you're my number one. That's how he talks, you know. And then Meg will just be like, D, like, honestly. She'll be like, D, like, honestly, I'm just letting you know, if you follow in Harry's footsteps, it's D, it's over. And he's just like, I'm not going to, man. I think you're beautiful. And she'll be there grinning teeth. So very, very interesting dynamic that they have there. Very interesting. Now let's move on to Toni talking to Yas GPT. And I forgot who mentioned it in my last review. I'm going to try and go into the comment and try and remember who said it. Yas GPT is exactly what we should be calling her, because as I said in my last review, that babe, as much as she's bringing the chaos, which we defo stand, because she's definitely keeping the girlies on their toes, she is not real. I'm not even joking, guys. She's actually not real. Yas GPT, Yasmin, whatever, it's almost like, and I said it in my last review, there's no soul behind her eyes. I can't explain it. She just looks like she speaks and then she's dazed. I don't understand. And I know you know what I'm talking about, because some of you picked up on it in my last review as well and commented it as well. Something is interesting about that girl over there. But anyway, of course, she was speaking to Toni, and Toni and her were talking about how, you know, it's always the girl's fault. Why is it always the girl's fault? These girls are always getting onto the girls, but they're not getting onto their men, blah, blah, blah. Now, what was so interesting was during that scene, you could tell that Toni, I don't want to say she's regretting her alliance with Yas, right? But I feel like deep down she is. She's nodding and she's like, yeah, like, honestly, but it's almost like she even looks at her a bit like, oh, yeah. Because I think she started to deep that no, I've become friends with a woman. Okay, I've become friends with a mad woman, but it's too late, babes. Oh, is it too late? Who knows? Now let's move on to Helena now pulling Harry for a chat. And the only thing I literally wrote down here was, is Harry real? Guys, I'm telling you, this guy is there for a tan and vibes. Harry is in that villa for a tan. There's no way, and I said this in my last review, there's no way anyone looks at Harry and thinks, oh my gosh, this is my husband. This is husband material. That guy is so unserious. He's so unserious that he has the girlies shaking in their boots. Oh, ciao. Okay. But of course, Helena ended up asking him, you know, do you actually really fancy Yas? Like, I just need to get to the bottom of this because I am literally at my wit's end. It is too much. And he was like, yeah, she's all right. I just thought, Helena, Save yourself the embarrassment. I know you're trying to hold on to this guy for whatever reason, but please, please save yourself the embarrassment and let this guy go. We know that she eventually does throughout the episode because later on she ends up calling it quits, but honestly, it definitely was about time. Now, what was so interesting was even after this conversation, Yaz now ended up walking up to Harry after and was just like, you're right, like, you know, instantly. And this is one thing I love about Yaz. Someone said that Yaz has bombshelled like the other bombshells haven't bombshelled. Someone said Ekansu will be walking on all fours. Yaz will actually hold your man's hand in front of you, eye to eye, shine your eye and see that I'm talking to your man. Okay, because right after that conversation she went to go and speak to Harry instantly. Now after she spoke to Harry and they're just having a conversation, a flirty conversation at that, Megan, the Irish one, was in the kitchen with the rest of the islanders, and she was like, oh, look at her, she's a vulture, oh, lazy, boring, on to the next one, and I mentioned this in my last review. I feel like Irish Meg is actually quite annoying. I still stick by it, I'm sorry. She seems to be the most vocal. I think she thinks that she's incredibly safe because she's with Tommy, but both of them together, even both of them separately, I actually find them quite insufferable. I think she's quite suffocating. I think she has a very potty mouth and she definitely gives me mean and girl vibes. That's the vibe that I'm getting. Sorry, but like, even if he wanted to get to know someone else, why are you shouting, boring, then to the next, vulture, she's a vulture, looking for her next victim? What a weird thing to do. That's weird. I'm sorry. And I'm going to say it as it is, because that's what we do on this channel. Now, moving on to Ben now talking to Shakira. I actually have quite a few notes today. Wow, that's so interesting. Anyway, let's move on. Moving on to Ben now talking to Shakira about how he was annoyed with the things that she said in the game, you know, and then even she was like, you are a hothead. He's just like, okay, well, what does that mean? It means what it means, Ben. You are a hot and you're boring. I said this already. The B in Ben stands for boring. I feel like the lack of self-awareness, is very telling, because even he was just like, what do you mean our conversations don't stimulate your brain? I mean that your conversations don't stimulate my brain. What's actually not clicking? And once again, I do feel like he was actually being quite defensive as well. It's quite interesting because, you know, later on in the episode, Shakira ended up calling it quits with Ben and he took it quite well. She also did say in her confessionals that she thinks he took it well because of his pride and maybe his ego, you know, not to, but I just find Ben quite boring. And I said this before, he just gives me height. He seems quite bland to me. If you guys think Ben is giving you spicy, let me know, but he's giving me bland. All right, now moving on briefly to Harrison and Megan, who were sitting around the fire pit. Instantly, I said, since when? Harrison, Atty, Megan. Since when? But they were talking about at the fire pit, getting to know each other, a lot of flirting taking place. And of course, Tommy was overlooking as well. He was just like, what's going on over there? And this is just what I mean. Like, I don't know, maybe because Megan and Tommy got together, you know, just first instance, maybe they feel like they have to stay locked in, but they really don't. And if they do stay locked in as well, just because of how Love Island UK is, I know that they're going to make it to the finals. I just know they're going to make it to the finals, but that's another story. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, okay? Now, nighttime, nothing to discuss other than the fact that Harry went to sleep outside on the daybed. Now, moving on to the following day, starting off with the girls talking to Yasmin in the changing room, and they were just like, honestly, Yas, like, you know, yesterday was just really heated, you know, but we just want to let you know that, you know, we're all cool, and Yas was just like, oh, it's okay, like, honestly, I'm fine. That girl is actually funny. She was just like, honestly, I don't take anything to heart, yeah. That's what she was doing. So that was actually quite funny because she genuinely is not bothered at the fact that, one, if none of you like me, whatever, but two, I'm doing what I need to do for myself, and three, I just don't care. Now, moving on to the guys talking, of course, Connor was speaking to Dejon and he was saying that he's finding it quite tough to get his own time because he's an only child and he feels like with Emily and this and this and that and that. And Dejon was pretty much telling him, like, at the end of the day, you need to put yourself first. You know how you feel. So I think, if anything, that was just kind of like just to let Dejon and also other people possibly in the villa know, as we know later on, that he is keeping his options open, and as much as he does like Emily, he definitely wants to continue to explore things with other people as well. Now, moving on to Harry now pulling Shakira for a chat. Of course, very random, number one, but also number two, CCTV, Mama CCTV of the villa, aka Megan, was just like, what did she say again? She was like, oh my gosh, he's not doing that. Helena! Now, you claim to be Helena's friends, whether you are, whether you're not, whatever, but she told you that she's done with this guy, right? Why are you bringing my attention to the fact that the guy that I like is now speaking to somebody else in the villa? Why are you shouting out my name so that I can see that a conversation is taking place that I don't care about? And this is what I mean. People on Twitter were even just like, oh, at the end of the day, Megan's allowed to stand up for her friends if her friend isn't going to stand up, but she seems to be so vocal in situations that don't concern her all the time. guys, I'm not going crazy. I know some of you pick up on this as well, but she is very interesting. And as the episodes are going on, I'm starting to see new sides to her and different sides of her as well. Now, moving on, anything else on a discussion that, okay, of course, you know, Harry was speaking to Shakira. Once again, Harry isn't real. He's there for a tan and he's there for good vibes. Okay, he definitely is there. But also, Shakira was the the Mandem Sugar from the first episode anyway. All the guys liked her, so I'm not actually surprised. But I don't see Shakira being with Harry. I don't know. I think they look quite odd together. Okay. But Shakira is definitely going to entertain it, especially because we know that she ends up locking things off with Ben. Now, briefly moving on to Connor and Emily were having a conversation. Yes, this is what I wanted to talk about. So Connor and Emily were having a conversation, right? And then Toni was sitting with Meg and Dejon, and she was just like, I just don't like her. And they were just like, who, Emily? She was just like, yeah, there's just something about her. And then Dejon and Meg were like, oh, we actually quite Dejon and Meg were like, oh, we actually quite like her. And then Meg was just like, yeah, like, I think she's fine. And then Toni was just looking at them like, and it's given she wanted to gist, but the gist backfired, okay? You need to gist the people that understand your gist. If you're gisting by yourself and the people that you don't understand your gist or more, you're in for it. And now Meg has downloaded that information in her brain, and guess what she's going to do? She's going to snitch. And we know that she does snitch later on in the episode. But I'm actually glad that she did, because I never even knew that Toni had an issue with Emily. As far as I'm concerned, from the past seasons, past episodes, sorry, they've been quite cool together. Anyway, moving on next to the nighttime. So, of course, before the girlies and the guys went outside to the main villa, Toni was just like, oh, I'm just in a bad mood. Like, I'm just not really feeling it. And at first I was thinking, is it because maybe she thought being American was going to be her USP on the show? Of course, you know that she's on Love Island UK. But then I just thought, like, why is she acting so irritated and annoyed and so all of a sudden? Because she went from being fine to not being fine, and she also ends up crashing out at the end of the episode, which we're going to get into as well. Now, we've already spoken about Shakira locking things off with Ben, so I'm not going to delve into that. Of course, you knew that Meg now ended up sitting down with some of the girlies, included in the conversation of the girlies was Emily, and she was just like, yeah, like, Emily, I'm just pretty much going to tell you this, that me and Dee were sitting here earlier today, and Toni was just like, oh, like, how she doesn't really like you, and Emily was just like, is it because Connor chose me? Like, do you know, like, Connor chose me, basically, get over it, so it's not my fault that he wants to get to know me. But the plot ended up thickening, because right after that conversation, what does Connor come and do? And I was just like, at first, I won't lie, I thought Connor was pulling Meg to try and get some advice off of Meg so that he can continue to get to know Emily. I didn't know Connor was into Megan, guys. Did you know? Because I didn't know, okay? So Connor now comes over and he pulls Megan for a chat, and then everyone's just like, okay, plot thickens. Didn't see that happening, didn't see that coming. Of course, in that chat, he was basically saying that, you know, he's open. She was also saying that she's open to chat as well. And to be honest, guys, as much as it was very confusing, it's still very much early days, and everyone in that villa is allowed to get to know whoever they want to get to know. I'm sinking in my beanbag. Yeah, everyone in that villa is allowed to get to know exactly who they want to know. So I would just say it was a bit surprising. Yeah, I think I'll say it was just a bit surprising, but let's see. Okay, let's definitely see. We also know after that he now went up to now go and speak to Emily, and Emily was just like, you know, oh, I guess I'm second best. She was like, I guess I'm second best. I would have appreciated it if, and he was just like, I didn't feel the need to tell you because it was literally just a harmless chat. And she was just like, I would have appreciated it if you actually came to tell me that you wanted to get to speak to Megan. Like, I think that was just a bit weird. I'm just a bit confused, all these different things. Now, let me know what you feel about that. Do you feel like Connor should have told Emily, or do you feel like because it was just a harmless chat and because it's such early days that he didn't need to tell her that he wanted to get to know Megan? But very interesting, okay? Now, of course, moving on next to Harry in his little flowery, I don't know what Harry was wearing tonight. It was given pre-loved. Yes, it was definitely given pre-loved. If he wore it separately, or he even just wore common jeans with a white top and that flower blazer, cool, but flower and flower, it was doing a bit much. Anyway, we know that he ended up approaching Helena, and they basically had a chat on the terrace in which she was literally just like, you know, I'm completely over it. He said, oh, is it okay if we can still be friends? And she was just like, yeah, I guess we can. But even with that, guys, I don't know if I mentioned this in one of my other reviews, I do find Helena quite boring. She doesn't give me much. She seemed to be quite monotone. there's no oomph that I get from Helena. Do you get oomph from Helena? I don't get any oomph from her. So even when like, I just feel like, babe, like since we've joined this series and since you've been tuned in, your whole storyline has been centered around a boy, and not just any boy. It's been centered around Harry. You need to do better for yourself, babe. Now, of course, you also know that Helena and Meg also ended up apologizing to Yasmin over the situation, saying, you know, yeah, you're going to do what you're going to do, but at the end of the day, it's not your fault. It's the guys who are entertaining it, blah, 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 blah. How the tables turn. How interesting. Do I think they're going to be friends? No. Yasmin still very much looks like she hates them. Oh, you know what? I won't say hates them. Like, she doesn't care. That she's very, very, very unbothered. But they did apologize to her for the way that they spoke to her because they said it wasn't okay. And yes, it's true. At the end of the day, she's doing what she's come here to do for herself and also as a bombshell. But second of all, no one is closed off. And number three, you shouldn't be a mean girl to the babe who's just being herself, whatever that may look like to you. Now, of course, we know the episode ended with Toni and Emily obviously going for a chat because Emily was now aware of the things that Toni had said about her. And Toni pretty much when they had a chat was just like, at the end of the day, when me and Melisha were going to go home, you were happy, like you were smiling. And Emily was just like, but number one, no. Okay. But also number two, if that was such an issue, why didn't you mention this to me before? And Toni was just like, I don't need to mention it to you. At the end of the day, this has nothing to do with Connor. And then Toni now walks off like, you know, just get out my, she said, just get out of my face. So she gets up and she walks off. And then Emily goes to the rest of the villa. She's just like, she's saying that it's about Connor, but I'm so confused. Why didn't she bring it up earlier? And then Toni's now I forgot who she was speaking to, someone in the kitchen, but she was just like, she thinks it's about Connor. And it's like, the crash out was just so, the crash out was so confusing. I don't have any words. I can't tell you what happened. I can't tell you why it happened. I don't understand, because even after that, Toni now, I don't know if Toni's doing it for the plot, but Toni now walked up to the rest of them in the villa and literally said, boo-hoo, in her face. Is that not weird? Is that not strange? Why don't you think that's weird? I don't know, guys. Can anyone let me know when Toni and Emily fell out? I don't ever recall, unless I miss an episode. And I didn't miss an episode. I don't recall when there was ever an issue between Toni and Emily. So if someone can break it down for me in the comments, I would really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, that is a quick rundown of today's episode. I think I would rate it a 5-6 max out of 10. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't completely flat, but we're here now anyway. But yeah, guys, it's the final review of the week. So tomorrow we have a cheeky day off. On Sunday, I'm thinking, guys, you guys know I usually used to go on live for Sundays. Should we continue? Should we bring that back, or should we just do a normal video review? Because you guys know we love a live on this channel. We have a good time on YouTube Live. You know the vibes. So let me know down in the comments if you guys either want a live or if you guys want a YouTube video. Or I'll also do a poll on my channel tab thing where you guys can vote and let me know. But yeah, guys, it's been a great week. I want to thank you guys so much for catching up with me and tuning in. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And I'm just glad that the Love Island family is back. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you haven't yet subscribed, be sure to subscribe and definitely join the family. Also, be sure to follow me on my Instagram and also my Twitter at SarahDestinyX. And number 3, please have a lovely evening. Have a lovely day off tomorrow. And I shall see you on Sunday. Bye.